with these kind of rotating lockdowns, as it were, between regions, and obviously trying to make sense of it all. So I thought it'd be great to kind of, chat with you and get some expertise from you regarding the situation for the aftermarket in terms of training technicians and sort of opportunities there. So I thought, I'd start off with a bunch of questions, and then we can go from there and add anything you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, first, I guess the easiest way to start this is probably, we'll start with our diagnostic business, which I would kind of say is a bit of a snapshot on the industry, because if the shops are busy, they use us more. If they're not busy, they use us less. So when the lockdowns first started in March, excuse me, our business nosedived. We were getting almost zero requests. We were going from 3 and 4 requests a day to 1 every couple of days, if that. There were long periods of time where the truck sat idle, but that only lasted for about a month. And then it started to kind of turn around, and we got busier and busier. And now we're at the end of October. Our diagnostic truck is as busy as it's ever been. So the shops have bounced back somewhat, or they've made the necessary changes to be able to work under the restrictions of the coronavirus.
Okay. Well, that's great news to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and then most of the shops that I talked to are kind of reporting the same thing. They had a slow bit there at the beginning. They learned what they had to do, and now they're pretty much going. They may be down a little, but they're not off nearly as much as I think they thought they were going to be. On the training side of things, which is the biggest part of our business, by the way, we were typically doing. We do small group training, so small group would be from 20 to 80 people, depending on area, region, that kind of stuff. And we were booked, like we always are. We were booked pretty much every night of the week, Monday through Thursday, from September through till the second week of June, which is our normal training season. And in March, when they announced the COVID shutdown, that all disappeared. We lost it all, and we're not going to be able to recover it. Now, having said that, that kind of forced us to get serious about the online stuff, and it's been a slow build. We did some free stuff to start to build an audience, and we started charging for the stuff. I would say probably mid-August. Maybe even a little bit before that. And now we're into what I would call our regular training season, where we do a different topic every month. And it's selling okay, but it needs to be better. We're not seeing as many guys sign up for that as we would normally have attend our in-person sessions. Okay.
So with that sort of in mind, I mean, we can just dive into the questions if you like, and then sort of go from there. But I think, since this whole COVID-19 pandemic sort of started, I mean, I'm curious to know from you, what's been the biggest feedback you've seen from technicians in terms of how they're looking to successfully diagnose and repair specific vehicle problems? Because obviously it's changed things a little bit in the way they operate and how they do stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. Yeah. It's two things. Number one, we're still seeing the same types of issues, a lot of electrical problems, a lot of parts being thrown on cars, that kind of stuff, and not getting them fixed. And then we have to go out and kind of sort them out. So we're still seeing a lot of that, which was going on before. And then there has always been a reluctance for a lot of the technicians to not take skills update training. That hasn't changed any, and I think the pandemic, to a certain extent, has made it easier for them to not take training. They just don't sign up, and there's no, I don't know what the word is. There's no there's no motivation for a lot of these technicians to upgrade their skill set. And Not all. I mean, there's lots of good technicians out there. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush by any means, but by and large, the majority of technicians are really not well trained. They don't have the skill set to diagnose a lot of these issues, and those issues are persisting regardless of efforts to change them.
Right.
And yet they have more access to training and you know, the ability to acquire these skill sets than they've ever had before, and yet it's still not turning the boat, so to speak.
Okay. So I mean, it's an interesting situation because the opportunity is there, but then kind of a lot of them are not taking it up, are they? They're not taking the chance to actually use this to their advantage, right?
Yes. And there's a couple of things that we're seeing now that we have switched over to the online stuff. And when we did the in-person stuff, we had a lot of the jobbers and stuff that we work with would basically task their sales force to go out and make direct contact with the technicians and get them signed up that way. That motivation seems to be missing now. The sales guys sometimes will put it out there, sometimes they won't. There's definitely not the push to get people signed up. And I think what's happening, and we've seen this, we're trying to work with a couple of large chains, and what we're seeing is because there isn't people out there pushing the signups and stuff like that, it's being, it's kind of a voluntary thing. What's happening is it's getting to the front desk or the managers, and it's not getting to the technicians.
Okay.
So the technicians, even if a technician had a desire to take training, he may not even know that it's available without going out and doing some searching, he would have to have, he would kind of have to know where to go to look to even sign up or find out about it.
Okay.
And we're finding that, in particular, with a couple of the chains that we're looking at, we have made contact with them, and their head office thinks this is a great idea, but yet when we get down to the store owner or store manager level, it kind of stalls at his desk.
Right. Okay.
So we need a way to get to the technician, and I don't have it, not yet anyway.
Okay. So I think one of the questions is, obviously this online training and webinars are here, and they're more effective now than they've ever been. But sort of looking beyond the pandemic, if you like, I mean, I certainly think they're going to form a greater part of the overall training strategy. I think the question sort of is kind of how, right? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The online training is going to grow. I think it's going to be the standard for delivering training, other than maybe small group hands-on, where the technician comes out of the shop and he goes to someplace like our training center for some very specific training. But the bulk of training, certainly skills training, technical expertise on certain systems, like I'm writing a class right now on the Chevy Bolt. Okay. All of that will be delivered virtually. Right. And from what I see, I don't think group training is coming back anytime soon, if at all. At least what I would call small group training, less than 100 people, for the simple reason that this is way more cost effective, and you can actually get to a bigger audience. So and I'll give you an example of that. We tried to run training probably 10 years ago in Perry Sound. Right. Perry Sound is a sort of a northern community, cottage country. So there's not a lot of garages up there. And the jobber that wanted to bring the training up there was totally committed to it, lost money on it. And the bottom line is he could not put enough people, he couldn't get enough shops to send enough people to make it viable for him. Well, now those shops, all they need is internet access, and they've got access to the same type of training. So even so, for communities like that, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, no, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of evolves, and I think sort of the savvy operators, they're going to be the ones that are going to jump on board, and that's kind of what we've seen all along, even before the pandemic, when we had these guys filling the physical classes, right? Yes. Yeah, and there's no doubt that the training is desperately needed. We need to improve the skill set of most of the technicians working out there, and yet the motivation doesn't seem to be. It's not there for a lot of them, which is it's kind of disheartening, really, when you look at all the work and effort that's been put into promoting training and getting these guys to buy into the fact that they need to be up to date on all this stuff, and yet it's still a struggle. And it's not just us, it's everybody. I mean, you talk to CarQuest or Napa or any of those guys, they're all up against the same struggle. Getting guys to literally take training.
I mean, do you see there's any way that we can kind of sort of tackle this problem? I know we can't solve it, but anything that we can do to kind of perhaps, improve the situation?
A couple of things. Number one, I think we need to get directly to the technician. I think a lot more of them would take training if they knew about it and they knew how accessible it was. I mean, one of the knocks that you get with night training is they're tired after work. They worked all day. Now they're going to go and sit through a class, that kind of stuff. So with online training, you can pretty much take it whenever you want. Like the way we're delivering it, we run a session at 4 p.m, 7 p.m. We run it again on Saturday morning, and then everybody gets we record the videos just like we're recording this, and then everybody gets a copy of those videos. Nice. So even if you can't take the class in one of the 3 time slots, you can still get the video and watch it whenever you want to.
Okay.
The other thing that I think needs to happen besides getting around or getting directly to the technician is I almost think, and I'm not a fan of this by any stretch of the imagination, I honestly think that the government needs to step in and make mandatory training a part of retaining your license.
Okay.
If they're not going to do it voluntarily, then it's going to have to be mandated, because the cars that are coming down are way more sophisticated than anything that we've seen to date. I mean, DOIP is about to be launched, and these guys are struggling with 2005 cars.
Yeah, so there's a big gap there, isn't there?
No question.
Okay. Sort of moving on to a slightly different subject in terms of the diagnostic side. How is AutoAide kind of delivering diagnostic services, and how is that the way that you work with the shops evolved? I mean, especially obviously coming to things like mobile diagnostic services. Have you seen any change there at all?
Other than the demand is going up, we're still doing the same things that we've done for the last 20 years. We go out, we assess the car, we do our troubleshooting, we leave them with this is what needs to be fixed on it, and we move on to the next one. And generally, unless there's a problem, that's sort of the end of it for us. That hasn't changed. I will say that the problems are getting tougher. Okay. In that we used to, when I started doing this and I was all by myself, I used to figure when I got a call to a shop, start to finish, I could figure about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes at a stop. That's what I kind of allowed. That gave me enough time to go in and figure out the car, do the invoicing, get paid, and get out of there. That's now, it's actually getting close to 2 hours.
Right.
A lot of the problems that we're seeing now are taking longer to figure out. There's a lot more research and stuff that needs to be done, because the systems are so complex now. You spend half your time reading and figuring out how this stuff works, so then you can go back and diagnose it. Where when I started into this in 2000, there was still some of that, but it wasn't as bad, and the information was more readily available then than it is now, especially on certain car makes.
Yeah, that's an interesting subject, because there are a couple of brands, and we won't mention any names specifically, but where techs have a really hard time in actually getting the information, right?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be sitting in on a video conference next Friday, I believe it is, with Donnie Safer and the folks from Aero on the Repair It Right 2020 Commission up here about
Okay.
that very thing.
Right.
The information is going to be one of our biggest challenges, and other than a few people, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of action on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's another sort of major issue facing the industry. But do you think there's kind of ways in which we can try and move forward? I mean, collectively, because I think there's a bit of this sort of silo mentality almost between some of the OEs and the aftermarket. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, we all service cars, we all work on cars, and I think ultimately, if there can be some kind of way in which everybody can come together, it will benefit everybody, right?
Yeah, I think what has to happen is that the auto manufacturers, not all of them, because some of them play really nice, like Ford and GM are really good. Toyota and Honda are really good. Nissan's not too bad. Mazda's not too bad. Chrysler has gone stupid with their subscriptions and what it costs you to get into their cars now. I don't know if that's the Fiat influence or whatever, but most of the problems, the real big problems, are on the European side.
Okay.
They are not making their information readily accessible without a lot of work on the part of the shop or the technician, and in some cases they just don't provide it at all in any kind of meaningful way. And so far the North American guys are playing ball pretty good, but I think we may have some trouble with DOIP and who actually can get into the car. And I know in the United States now, in Massachusetts, there's a law in the book to repeal some of that right to repair, access to information, and there's going to be a fight there. And if that goes the wrong way, we could be totally shut out of these cars. Yeah. And yet there's a few people beating the drum, but not a lot.
Okay. So I think, you know, one of the things is just to kind of spread awareness about that this stuff is happening and, you know, ensure that our industry has a viable future, right?
Without information and access to the car's data stream, we're sunk.
Okay.
You won't even be able to do a brake job.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And at some point, you may not be able to take the wheels off the car without authorization from the car itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the most part, the general public certainly doesn't know anything about it, and most of the technicians either unaware, which I think is probably the biggest thing, they're unaware, or don't care.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can find ways to sort of change that situation and certainly at least spread the word and get the message out there that this stuff is real and it's something that could impact the industry.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem we have with that sort of thing, and I think it holds true for training too, is getting to the actual technician.
Okay.
We don't really have an avenue. We don't have like a central registry.
Okay.
Where we have where we have the technicians' emails and that kind of stuff, where we can send them information on this kind of stuff. That I don't think that exists anywhere. Maybe what is it? The College of Trades has it,
right?
But I don't even know where they're at these days.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it's sort of tough to sort of figure out, you know, which is the best way to approach it and how would we create something like that, right?
Yeah, I would hate to see. I don't like the idea of legislating this stuff.
Yeah.
But it may be necessary to get the job done, and that would be a shame. We should be able to police ourselves.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. Mark, while I've got you here, is there anything else that you'd like to mention related to this stuff, or perhaps the training element as well?
Well, the training, the biggest thing is like everything else, I think we need to have more people signed up, whether it's our stuff or CarQuest or whoever. I mean, everybody is switching over to the online stuff. I think the technicians need to buy into the fact that they need to upgrade their diagnostic skills. It'll be in the long run, it's going to be better for the customer, because the cars actually get fixed without throwing parts at them. I mean, and the only way to do that is to raise the skill set of the technicians that are actually performing the work on the cars.
Okay.
So I think training is key. Good training has to be the right kind of training, and it has to be presented in such a way that these guys can absorb what you're telling them. Like, we don't do a lot of, well, I should say we don't do a lot of theory. We don't do a lot of what I would call engineer level theory. We kind of try and explain things in the simplest terms possible as to how this stuff works, and then we give them the tools they need to diagnose it. I think that's key too, and how you explain this stuff to the technicians. Because a lot of them, if you can explain it to them right, they get it, and then they kind of run with it. But I don't know. I used to tune out when I would hear a guy talking about, electron theory or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh yeah, okay, that's not going to do it for me.
Yeah.
So
it goes over your head a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, is it relevant? Yeah, if you're an engineer trying to design a computer chip or something, but when it comes to, checking the wiring on a CAN bus, it's not really relevant. So show me how to troubleshoot the CAN bus, never mind all this other crap, and I'm good with that. So nice and simple.
Good stuff. Well, that's the way I like stuff too, nice and simple. And the older I get, the simpler I want it to be.
Yeah, so, I hear you there, brother.
Okay, great. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure chatting with you this morning. Thanks very much for your time. Really
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.